Hey, Beasties to here, and welcome to week 4 of the VDL. This week we're playing against the Brisbane Blazikens. So let's get into the teams. So this is my team on the left and my opponent's team on the right. But before we get into this specific matchup, I'd like to note that I made this exchange. Toxapex, which I previously had, I decided to exchange for Dragalge on the right. So Dragalge is a poison dragon Pokemon similar to Naganadel. However, it is incredibly slow. It's got 44 base speed. In addition, it has the ability adaptability, which dramatically increases the damage output of dragon and poison moves specifically. And so the idea behind this is that I think that Slowking is a very good Pokemon at setting up Trick Room. However, it's a little bit awkward that previously in my team composition, I felt the need to make it my offensive Trick Room sweeper, which it can do and it can do very well. However, sometimes you need to make it incredibly bulky to be able to survive so you can set up Trick Room. And so having the opportunity to have a Trick Room sweeper in addition to the Trick Room setter seems very relevant. In addition, Toxapex, I did not feel a great time to bring any of the previous 3 weeks because it, even though it's very bulky, it's not great into multiple psychic and ground moves, which my opponent's teams are likely going to have. And in addition, its main benefit, which was wide guard, seems a little bit hard to guarantee or to play around because my opponent could easily pick single targeted moves instead of multi-targeted moves. So let's get specifically into this week's match. So looking at my opponent's team on the right, the two things that concern me the most looking into it is Landorus Incarnate. Landorus Incarnate is a ground Pokemon, so that does very good damage into most of my poison Pokemon. In addition, it has the ability Sheer Force, which allows it to have an incredible damage output in moves that have secondary effects. And so typically Landorus Incarnate is frequently done with the move Earth Power, and Earth Power almost kills everything on my team. In addition, it also has Psychic coverage and the moves Psychic and I think Zed Hunbud if you want to make it physical. And so this allows it to have perfect coverage into my team, as in it can do super effective damage to anything on my team, and it can one-shot most of my team if I don't prepare for it effectively. Other than that, the other thing that's really noteworthy is Talonflame. So Talonflame has Gale Wings and Tailwind, which means that you can set up Tailwind at priority speed. And so that means that it is incredibly difficult for me to prevent their Tailwind, especially because it's also very fast speed stat, with Crobat being the only thing that's faster than that. And so I was thinking a couple of things about whether or not I wanted to try to fight the way of like outspeeding them using my own Tailwind. But the problem is I don't see a way in which I can get Tailwind and prevent them from getting Tailwind at the same time. And so in that situation, basically only the Pokemon faster than Landorus really matter, and I don't see any Pokemon that are faster than Landorus that seem really incredibly relevant. And so with Talonflame being so good at setting up Tailwind, I decided I probably want to go with the Trick Room package. Other than that, on my opponent's side, we can also see that their slow Pokemon are not particularly good. Hippopotamus seems pretty weak stats overall. Togetic and Lurantis both have very bad weaknesses to poison moves, and that's pretty much all their slow Pokemon. So I definitely think that in Trick Room I have a pretty good position. And then other than that, looking at my opponent's team, you can see that they do have Fake Out and Lopunny, and Darmanitan has incredible damage output with I think 135 base attack, and also learns the ability Share Force, which also increases its damage output. And so those are some noteworthy things. So like I said on my side, the important things that I think was Trick Room seems really important. And so let's get into the Pokemon I brought. So here's the first 4 Pokemon on my team, and then we have 2. I'll show the other 2 later. So the first one is Slowking, and here we get to see is that Slowking I decided to make incredibly bulky. I gave it max HP, and I gave it very close to max defense, and then I gave it the Shuka Berry. And so this means that pretty much with anything I tested, Slowking should take 1 hit from a Pokemon. And so if I pair it next to, let's say, a Moongus and Rage Powder, I should be able to set up Trick Room pretty safely. Or if I set up with a Trick Room a Fake Out Pokemon, I should also be able to set up in that case. And so next to that, I give it Protect, which is always good, especially with my opponent having Fake Out. And then Psychic, which hits everything on the team, on my opponent's team for at least neutral, except for one. And then Ice, specifically to target and one-shot Landorus. Next, we see Amoonguss. Amoonguss is pretty straightforward. I run the same 3 moves as I did in the previous 3 weeks, which is Protect, Rage Powder, Spore. And I decided to go with Giga Drain. I can see an argument for Pollen Puff, especially because I'm doing Trick Room this week, and most of my team is pretty bulky. And I might change it right before the match, we'll see. But other than that, I gave it very high defense and a little bit of special defense, and then I gave it an Akaberry to resist fire moves. That's mainly to survive a Flare Blitz from Durmanitan. And I believe that my Amoonguss should survive at least 1 hit from any Pokemon on my opponent's team. Next, we see I actually bring Dragalge, which is its first week I have it. This set is pretty straightforward. It's max HP and max special attacks with Life Orb. And because it has the ability adaptability, like I said, I gave it only Dragon and Poison moves in Sludge Bomb, Draco Meteor, Dark Pulse, and Protect. Like I said before, Draco Meteor and Dragon Pulse, even if they are resisted, are going to do the same damage as a neutral damage move. And so the only reason that you would switch from a Dragon move is if it's going from resisted to super effective, and there aren't many coverage moves that really hit many Pokemon, and so I decided to just go with Dragon and Poison exclusively. Next, we see Skuntank. I gave it Assault Vest in a max special defense, some HP, quite a bit of defense, and so the main idea with this is I wanted to survive an Earth Power from Landorus, and it is guaranteed to survive an Earth Power from Landorus. In addition, I also want to survive, be pretty bulky overall, and this survives most of the things I would like. I gave it Sucker Punch to give it priority when we're outside of Trick Room. I gave it Foul Play because it actually does more damage into most of the Pokemon that I would do dark damage into than if I use a move like Crunch. I decided to go with Flamethrower, which is why I gave it 4 special attack, and that allows me to cover some of the Pokemon on their team that have fire weaknesses and some that have very bad special defense, namely Buzzwole. Buzzwole has pretty bad special defense, and a Flamethrower from Skuntank actually is a guaranteed one-shot unless it's an Assault Vest. And then Poison Jab to finish up the coverage. I give the ability Stench, which gives all my moves a 10% chance to flinch. I'm not sure if it's better than Aftermath because Aftermath is very great if it triggers. However, it has a chance to not trigger if they hit me with a non-contact move. And so I decided to go with Stench, but it's definitely unclear which I think is better. And my final 2 are Tentacruel and Toxicroak. So Tentacruel, I gave it a Choice Scarf, and I gave it enough speed to outspeed actually my fastest Pokemon by a couple points. The idea was to outspeed opposing Choice Scarf Pokemon. So my opponent's Choice Scarf Pokemon are probably going to be slightly outspeed my fastest Pokemon, and so I made sure to outspeed that by a couple points. And its coverage moves are pretty straightforward. I gave it 2 ice moves and 2 water moves. 1 ice move and 1 water move target both of my opponent's Pokemon, and one of them are single target. The multi-targeted moves do less damage overall, but they get around something like Redirection or play around something like a Protect. And then the single target do more damage, so Ice Beam and Blizzard should both one-shot Landorus, and then they overall have my opponent's team overall has pretty bad water resists. And finally, I gave Toxicroak. So Toxicroak, I gave 0 speed, minimum speed. I considered making it fast. However, based on the speed tiers, it's really awkward because my opponent, if they want to outspeed Toxicroak, can, but they might not do. And so basically it would be, I've been investing a lot of speed into the slight chance that they don't make their Pokemon fast. And that ended up not being worth it in my mind. So I decided to give it min speed so that in Trick Room, it is going to be faster than most of my opponent's stuff. Other than that, I gave it Fake Out, obviously, its main reason here. And then Sucker Punch to deal some damage even when I am outside of Trick Room. And then Ice Punch to one-shot Landorus. And I gave it Protect so that I can, protect against another opponent's Fake Out and whatnot. So overall, I feel okay about this matchup. I hope that I can do this. One of the concerning things is Tentacruel being Choice Scarf and everything else on my team being pretty slow and Trick Room focused makes me a little bit concerned that it might be difficult to get Tentacruel in the correct position to do work. And so hopefully I'm able to position it properly if I bring it this week. So let's get into the matches. Here we are for week 1. Look at my opponent's team. They pretty much have exactly what I was expecting. Clearly, I think they were going to bring Fake Out, Tailwind, and then some damage output. So I think that Amoonguss, Slowking with Dragargle and Skuntank in the back seem like the most reasonable options. The idea behind this is because my team looks very slow to them. I'm not expecting them to lead Talonflame. And so this seems reasonable as a means to play around Fake Out turn 1 because both of them can lead Protect. And then after that, we can Rage Powder and Trick Room. And then Dragalgal will be in the back to do a lot of damage under Trick Room. So here they lead Lopunny and Darmanitan, which seems like a pretty reasonable lead against my Amoonguss and Slowking. So the main option is whether or not I want to read which Pokemon they're going to Fake Out and try to either Trick Room or Spore, because my Slowking and my Amoonguss should take a Flare Blitz from Darmanitan. And so if I think they're going to Fake Out one, I can, instead of double protecting, I can protect one and either Spore or protect one in Trick Room. I'm pretty sure that that seems a little bit greedy because obviously I could theoretically maybe lose the game from that. So I decided to do the safe double protect to deal with the Fake Out in turn 1. So we get the double protect up. And we see that there's a Fake Out into the Slowking spot and a Flare Blitz into the Amoonguss spot. So if I would have Spored Amoonguss and Trick Room, it might have been better, but I think I'm fine with the decision. So here we just Rage Powder and Trick Room. Amoonguss should take a Flare Blitz from Darmanitan. And so from there, it either is going to survive the double up or it's going to be maybe hit with like a Triple Axle or something and a Flare Blitz. So we get the Rage Powder off, and they do Flare Blitz into the Amoonguss, and that's what the Aqua Berry is for, because there's no way I can survive this without that Aqua Berry, and so that guarantees I survive. And here we see that they do a switcheroo, and it goes into the Amoonguss spot, and I get the Assault Vest. So this is really annoying for Amoonguss. That means I can only use Palm for the rest of the game. However, I do get Trick Room up, which I think is very big. And so from here, there's a couple options. Basically, it's whether or not I should switch out Amoonguss. And so I'm thinking about what type of switch-ins. And I don't have a great switch into a Flare Blitz from Darmanitan. And so I think it's just optimal to attack. And so I decided to attack the Lopunny with Palm Puff and Psychic into the Darmanitan. I don't think this kills, however, it should put it in damage. Such a recoil will kill it. So I switch into Rotom. And here, it's we get Palm Puff. So here we would see that Giga Drain would have been really nice if I would have chosen that instead of the Palm Puff, but I switched it in the last second. So we see that Psychic does do pretty good damage, but it does not kill as expected. And then the Flare Blitz into the Slowking, which doesn't kill it, but does quite a bit of damage, and the recoil is able to kill the Darmanitan. So that's pretty much what I expected to happen. I would have been pretty fine with them attacking Amoonguss, but they don't have much just reason to attack Amoonguss at any point. So here they have Fake Out from Lopunny. So I wanted to Pollen Puff into Slowking, but now that they're likely going to Fake Out, it doesn't seem like a good decision. And so my plan is to switch out into the Dragalgi, because I'm expecting to take a Thunderbolt, and so this resists electric moves, and then Amoonguss can do a little damage. So here they Fake Out into the Amoonguss, which is a good move for them in hindsight, and they do a Light Screen, which makes a lot of sense because my team is overall fairly special oriented, and we see that Rotom reveals that it's leftovers. And so here, I think it's a pretty safe just switch back into Slowking and go for some damage. And the question is which Pokemon I think I should damage. And I decided that Lopunny does not seem like a great damage dealer to me, and so I thought I might as well go for Rotom because I think it's going to be more offensive threat. And so one thing that's noteworthy is I'm also switching these Amoonguss and the Slowking out because they do have Regenerator, and so I'm healing a little bit each time I make these switches. And so these switches are really relevant in making them last longer and as the game continues. And so here we see Dragola does a lot of damage even though they do have the light screen up, and Slowking takes a Thunderbolt and also takes a Triple Axle. It does 2 hits. The third hit was really close to hitting or killing. I think it would have survived the third hit, but it definitely was really close and was probably a little lucky that it missed. So here I think Rotom's going to protect. I'm pretty sure of that. So the question is do I want to Psychic and Dragon Pulse into it, or maybe do a Sludge Bomb, or maybe do a Draco Meteor into the Lopunny spot because I'm expecting to protect from Rotom. And so here we see that Lopunny does in fact switch out, and it is into the Landorus, and they do protect Rotom, so I predicted the turn pretty well. It could have been a little bit nicer because if I would have did Ice Beam into that spot instead, I would have definitely killed the Landorus even through the Light Screen. But I'm still pretty happy with the decision I made because this does quite a bit of damage between the two attacks. And so here, Rotom kills a little bit with Leftovers, and Trick Room is now over. So here, now they're faster than me. It's a little bit of an awkward spot. I want Skunk Tank to come in because Sucker Punch is incredibly relevant in here. So the main question is who do I think they're going to attack with Landorus? And that spot I should switch Amoonguss into that spot because I can take an attack very well. And this is kind of where the idea comes, and I decide that they're likely going to hit Slowking because Slowking is King set up Trick Room, which could be really annoying for them. And also this does heal me a little bit if that becomes relevant. And so here I decide to just attack it to the Landorus. So Amoonguss comes back out with a little bit more health, and I end up misreading that, and they do Earth Power into Drogalgi, which kills it. There's not much I could do about that. Like, obviously I could have protected or switched Amoonguss into that spot, but it happens. Amoonguss takes the Thunderbolt very well because it's Assault Vest and Resist Electric. I get paralyzed, but that's not too big of a deal. I think I can take it pretty, I'm already very slow, and it's not doing a lot of damage anyway. So here, I think it's clearly optimal to bring in just Skunk Tank because Sucker Punch. I could see an argument to bring in Slowking because they might do something greedy and not expect that the Sugar Berry, but I believe that Earth Power is still going to kill it even though. And so I bring out Skunk Tank. And so here, I'm pretty sure they're going to protect with Landorus because it's pretty obvious that I might have Sucker Punch. And so I'm decide that I'm just going to go for the double up onto Rotom instead of trying to hope that they don't protect with Landorus. And so we see that they do protect Landorus, which is what I expected. And we get the Sucker Punch onto the Rotom, which gets it really close to killing it. They connect a Hydro Pump into my Skunk Tank, which does pretty good damage, but I am the Assault Vest, so I can take it pretty reasonably. And then the Pollen Tuft ends up getting there. And so now I'm feeling pretty good. Their Landorus is really low, and their Lopunny is not the most concerning damage dealer. And so the main question is how do I make sure that Skunk Tank stays in? Because Skunk Tank is what's important to make sure I can win this game. And so the main question is do I want to Pollen Tuft into one of my own Pokemon or Pollen Tuft for damage? And so I decide to Pollen Tuft for damage because it seemed a little bit bold to assume that my Skunk Tank or my Slowking was going to survive the turn. And so I decided to just do some damage into Lopunny. So we sweep the Slowking out, and they fake out into the Slowking spot, which seems reasonable, and then they do a Psychic into the Amoonguss spot, and it kills the Amoonguss. So now I'm feeling pretty good. Now we're in a position where Skunk Tank has priority way to kill the Landorus spot, and we have the Lopunny not doing much damage. So here I think it's pretty safe to just go for the Sucker Punch on the Landorus spot and set up Trick Room. This is pretty safe because I don't think Lopunny can kill Slowking, and if they protect with Landorus, or if they don't protect with Landorus, I kill it, and if they do protect with Landorus, I get a pretty safe Trick Room up. So they end up not protecting with Landorus, and the Sucker Punch does get the KO. And they triple axle into the Skunk Tank, and Skunk Tank takes it pretty well. But we get the Trick Room up, and so now I feel like the game is pretty well in my favor. I'd be pretty hard for me to lose this one. And so here we just Poison Jab and Psychic into the spot. I can see an argument that Foul Play might do more damage, but I decided to just not reveal Foul Play because it's something that they might be playing around in the future. And so here we do the double up, the double dubs and kill, which is honestly a little surprising because Lopunny is not super bulky. But as you can see, this triple axle does very little damage. It hit all 3 times into the Slowking, and it took it very well. Now the double up is a clean kill, and we get there for game 1. So game 2, I'm feeling pretty good. The main question is how do I think they're going to adjust, and whether or not I think I have a good adjustment. So with that kill, let's go to game 2. Here we are for game 2, and I'm just thinking about what I'm expecting them to switch up. I would expect them to probably have a different lead. My guess is maybe Talonflame. If I see Talonflame, I'm 100% expecting it to have Taunt. So that's kind of one of the big things. So the main question is do I think Toxicroak seems worth it? And the answer is like yes. Toxicroak Slowking I think is a good lead, especially if I'm expecting Talonflame. However, every time I'm thinking about it, it's like, okay, what do I have in the back? Well, I want Amoonguss in the back because Amoonguss is very good switch into ground moves. And I want Dragalga in the back for damage output. So I also want that. And then Skunk Tank is really good because of Sucker Punch. And it's Psychic Immunity. And so I kind of want all 5 of them. And so it kind of makes it awkward that I kind of don't want... I think Amoonguss is not as good in the back. And so I end up deciding that I'm just going to go with the same 4 as I did last game. There could be an argument that maybe Toxicroak's better, but I decided to settle with those 4. So we see that they lead Landorus Talonflame, which I think is a pretty reasonable switch up on them. And I lead Slowking Amoonguss. So here, like I said, I'm expecting Talonflame to have Taunt, so I don't think I can do anything other than Rage Powder Trick Room. I could see an argument that maybe I Protect and Spore, but I think it's pretty clear that I need a Rage Powder because of the Taunt that I'm expecting. So we get the Rage Powder up, and they taunt into the Amoonguss spot. Here I was definitely very concerned because if they happened to be safety goggles, Talonflame, and they taunted Slowking, I think they would have got this game right here. But because they aren't, which ends up being fine, I take the Psychic, and we get the Trick Room up. So I'd say it was a pretty good turn 1. So here I think that, Talonflame has priority because of Gale Wings, and so I don't think I can leave Amoonguss in unless I just Protect. And so I think the easy play is to Ice Beam into Landorus and get the one-shot. I don't necessarily expect them to... I don't expect them to believe I'm going to kill it in one shot. And either Protect Amoonguss or switch it out. I decide that I'm just going to switch it out into the Skunk Tank because Skunk Tank should take a Brave Bird pretty well. So we switch out Amoonguss and to the Skunk Tank. And they Brave Bird with priority because of Gale Wings into the Skunk Tank, and Skunk Tank takes that pretty well, and it's able to take, and actually is able to take 2 more of those. And the Ice Beam goes to Landorus, and Landorus does die. It's pretty nice. If they would have had like an Ice Resist Berry, I definitely could have gotten pretty
pretty badly killed there. And the damage would have been pretty bad, but we end up being fine. So now that Talonflame has a little damage, it no longer has priority moves, and then Rotom comes in. So here, I think it's pretty clear that I'm fine with Talonflame just existing. It's not that big of a deal. And so I think I just double up into Rotom and try to get some most damage into that as I can. And so I decide to Psychic and Poison Jab into it. I considered like foul playing into like a Talonflame or something, but I decided to Poison Jab into it. It seems fair. So here we get the Psychic damage, which does a little bit over 50. And Poison Jab, which just barely misses the KO. And they get the light screen up. So having light screen definitely makes this game a little bit more tricky. However, I feel like we're in pretty reasonable shape. They get the Brave Bird and the Skunk Take. Skunk Take takes it about as well as it did last time, and then it's a little bit low. And so here the question is whether or not I want to save Skunk Take. And I decide that it's probably not that big of a deal, so I'm just going to attack both of the Pokemon in front of me and go with Psychic and Poison Jab into the Rotom. So we see the Psychic does not do a huge amount of damage after the light screen, but it does get a special defense drop, which does mean like the next special attack is a pretty easy kill, and the Poison Jab does kill the Rotom. Then they get the Brave Bird into my Skunk Take, and I'm okay. I was okay with this, with this death because I think Skunk Take did a pretty good job so far, and I'm up in number of Pokemon. So now I bring out Dragalge, and they bring out Klinklang. And so here, I'm definitely feeling pretty good, but it's still definitely a little awkward. So the main question is who do I want to target? And I decide that I'm going to Psychic into the Talonflame slot and Dragon Pulse. No, Psychic into the Klinklang spot and Dragon Pulse into the Talonflame spot. This is kind of because the Psychic seems really close to have killing Talonflame, but I forgot about the special defense drop, so I probably should have switched my targeting because Draco Meteor is gonna, or Dragon Pulse is gonna do more into Klinklang, and I think Psychic would have killed Talonflame anyways. And so it definitely was a little mistake because they protected, and that definitely makes it a little bit awkward next turn when Trick Room's over. So they get a attack and speed boost, and now I'm feeling not great. So the main question is what I think they're doing, and I'm expecting them to double up or to try to just deal damage. And so I decided to go for the killing Talonflame and setting up Trick Room. I honestly would say this is probably a little bit of a brain fart, and I kind of just forgot about the taunt on my opponent's Talonflame. And so I definitely think that this was a misplay on my side, and I should have either protected or just attacked there. But here we do kill the Talonflame, and I am in a 3v1. However, I honestly don't feel great because I have 0 moves that do even neutral damage to my Klinklang, and my Slowking is taunted. So here I decided to just Psychic, and I was pretty sure that Amoonguss should be able to take a Steel attack from the Klinklang here. And so I was debating between protecting and switching in Amoonguss. And I'm like, Amoonguss can take this hit. And so I'm just going to do that. I think it's a pretty reasonable switch in. And so we switch out and into the Amoonguss. And I'm like, okay, I'm assuming they're just going to attack the Amoonguss spot here. They do Gear Grind into the Amoonguss. It hits twice, and it just barely KOs. And I definitely feel like that was a big misplay on my side. I should have just protected my Dragalge because I thought that was a clean, a pretty safe switch in, and ended up not. However, I get very lucky, and I get a critical hit here, which does a lot of damage because Light Screen was still up there, a lot more damage than it would not normally done. And we're going to bring Dragalge back out. So here, I know Dragalga has a pretty clean one-hit KO if I Draco Meteor, but I think it's just Psychic and Protect is the obvious play because Slowking should definitely take a Gear Grind. And so we Protect, and they end up Gear Grinding into the Dragalga, which is pretty good for me. And then we Psychic, and we see that's a kill next turn. And we should shake up taunt. So here, the Optimal plays the Trick Room. I considered going for the double Protect, but I think that ends up not being relevant because honestly, if they like somehow double crit, it could be punishing me. So I decided to just attack, and so they do end up killing the Dragalga, and then we get the Trick Room up. And so here, yeah, we get the Trick Room up. And so here, we pretty much, the game is over, and I feel pretty good. I definitely think I got a little bit lucky in a couple of these matches, where a couple of rolls here or there would have been good. But overall, this was a really interesting match. I think that the Trick Room component seemed very good. I'm very happy with my inclusion of Dragalga. That damage output is incredibly relevant in the first game, and could have been incredibly relevant in this game if I would have been a little bit more careful. But overall, I was very happy with that new Pokemon, and I think it was optimal kind of with the Pokemon I ended up bringing. So hopefully, that was a great match. I enjoyed it, and hopefully I can continue doing well this season. Thanks for watching.